Welcome to the TSD Mindfulness video for emotional mapping, which is associated with teaching number 14. But first, I'm going to review teachings 12, 13, and 14. Teaching number 12, the mental field operates on logic and produces decision. So that's the mental field's chief responsibility is to gather information and send it through this logical process. And I explained that one of the ways that we acquire our logic is through the information processing model, which is sensory information comes into our brains, and then that information is moved into working memory where we contemplate it. And then some of that is moved into long-term memory, becoming our logic. And to be retrieved later, for better or for worse. Interestingly, everyone's logic is unique. We aren't all, just because we live in America or just because we live in Australia, it doesn't mean that we all have the same logic. We all have different ideas about what is true. The mental field produces decision, and the TSD mindfulness practice helps us determine makes us understand our decision-making process better by understanding how our fields are involved in that process. How is the mental field involved in the decision-making process? How is our gut field involved? How is our heart field involved? How do we have a decision-making process that's more divinely guided opposed to our mental field making all the decisions, or our gut field making all the decisions? So that is the review for teaching number 12. Teaching number 13, the gut field operates on survival instinct and produces a binary response of preserved or unpreserved. So the gut is concerned with physical survival, emotional survival, and egotistical survival. And so what happens is the gut sounds off this alarm that senses that there's some type of threat to one of these. And so either that sound is, that alarm is sounding, or we are feeling pretty calm and everything's okay. I mean, there's different incremental degrees of it, but it's pretty simple compared to the mental field. So teaching number 14, the heart field operates on trust and produces emotion. So the thing is, trust opens us up to emotional pain, egotistical pain, even sometimes physical pain. So that's the trade-off there. And our mental field and our gut field are constantly in action, working to protect our heart, protect us from feeling that pain, that emotional pain, that egotistical pain, and the physical pain. But the thing is that this approach of relying on our mental field and our gut field to keep us safe is not always ideal. Sometimes it's great, but especially when we're talking about these interpersonal relationships, it can actually stray us in wrong directions. And that's what so many of these teachings are about, is how the mental field and how the gut field can actually lead us into a direction that maybe isn't best for the relationship with people and things, even, addictions, our relationship with money, things of that sort. We instead can rely on divine flow for this security. The heart field produces emotion, and heart emotions are often spontaneous or illogical. And our heart emotions show the greatness of who we are and that we bring to the world. And you really heal the world when you are in your own authenticity, when you are in your own heart emotions. And in the video for teaching number 14, we did talk about the difference between mental emotions and heart emotions. So in this video, I'm going to go over the concept of emotional mapping. So first, I'm going to tell a story to illustrate what that can look like. It's one of the best ways to think about it is when we get triggered. We get emotionally triggered by something, and this emotional mapping can show us how that trigger develops in our system and how we react to it. So here's an example. So I have a friend who something that happened, a friend I wanted to have them help me out by making a phone call to somebody for me. And this friend was not doing it, was not following up and making this phone call for me. So I felt annoyed. I got annoyed. Annoyed is a mental emotion. It is intertwined with some logic that if someone is in this position, then they should do this. If a friend asks their friend to make a phone call, then they should make the phone call. You see, that's the conditional logic that's intertwined, creating this frustration. So I'm thinking thoughts like she does not value her friends. Her business is more important than her own friends. I'm not important to her. And she is unsupportive and bad at keeping the connection between us. These are these thoughts that are coming up when I'm in this trigger, feeling this emotional trigger. And so using these techniques, the TSD approach, then I notice that. And then I say to myself, well, what's deeper? What's underneath that? So that's really on the mental level. What's deeper? What is more on the heart level? And what's going on the heart level is I feel forgotten. I feel unimportant. I feel dismissed. These are these deeper heart emotions, this pain, right? There's pain under anger. So this is the pain. So then what I do is I sit there and I hold my hand over my heart and I say, forgotten. I feel forgotten. So it's really just completely radically accepting this deep heart emotion that I'm feeling. And so when I do that and I have my eyes closed and I say, this is what feeling forgotten feels like, forgotten, and that's naming that emotion is just helping me hold it there and creating space for it, because we usually want to just push those type of feelings away. But with this practice, we're just creating space for it. We know that it's a really just natural reaction. And as I do that, I am not associating the experience that I'm having with my friend anymore. Instead, I'm seeing this more holistically and seeing more of a pattern from childhood, seeing that this is re-triggered trauma as being a child and being forgotten. So that's really an insight, right? To see that. And then I continue the process by validating myself for feeling the way that I do, again, to help me not push that away, resist it, and instead accept it. So it's understandable that I feel forgotten. I want to be valued by others. So your validation statement can always start with, it's understandable. It's understandable. I'm feeling like this because, and that can really help deepen the process. And the process being opening up to emotional healing. This is an opportunity to open up to some emotional healing in this moment because of what transpired. And asking even on a deeper level, what's going on here? Do I feel unloved? Do I feel unworthy of love? Do I feel separate? Do I feel like a bad person in some way? So those are some 4 questions you can ask yourself to get even deeper. Do I feel unloved? Do I feel unworthy of love? Do I feel separate? Or do I feel like a bad person? And so it's part of the emotional mapping, right? So we started with frustration. No, I'm sorry, it was annoyed. Started with annoyed, mapped that down to feeling forgotten, feeling dismissed, feeling unimportant. And then we're mapping it down even further down to, I think in this situation, what I mapped it down to is I felt unloved, right? So we do that mapping to get to the deeper place. So still kind of with my eyes closed, going through this process, I remind myself I'm loved more than I realize. So addressing that deep core part there, that to the deepest core of this, I feel unloved, saying to myself, I am loved. I'm loved more than I realize. And I'm reminded when this process happens, I'm reminded that my friend actually really does love me, and that she's just really busy and she's really overwhelmed. And then I start to wonder with her schedule and how overwhelming it is, how amazing it is that she shows up as well as she does for her own husband and children and her family. And so then I realized that being this forgetting is not about me. And so it's healing. I got to get to a good place about it. So that's a story that shows the emotional mapping. I'm going to share my screen and share a handout that will illustrate this mapping. So this is, and if you're part of the TSD program, one of the programs, then you have access to this handout, emotional mapping. So I'm going to actually start at the bottom where it says seed emotion. So what a seed emotion is something that develops on a soul level. Your soul feels this. So a seed emotion, and these are very simple, very deep emotions. So seed emotion is feeling unloved or feeling loved, feeling not worthy of love or feeling worthy of love, feeling connected or feeling separate, or feeling bad or evil, feeling like a good person or a bad person. So these are these really deep core emotional experiences that we have on a soul level. So we could say that this story that I just told actually started here. There was the situation happened and I instantly on a soul level felt unloved. And then let's follow the arrows up. So the broad heart emotion, the precise heart emotion really has to do with the emotional clusters, the way that is set up. But basically, then on a deep human level, I felt forgotten. And is that listed as one of these? All of them are on the emotional clusters. Forgotten is not on here, but the category that forgotten is in the neglect category, where you see this broad heart emotion. And then my logic got instigated that, well, if a friend asks another friend to make a phone call for them or do a favor for them, they should do it. So that logic got instigated. And then I went into the mental emotion of annoyance. So that's the mapping going upward. But most of the time, we aren't conscious during that upward process. So with the TSD mindfulness techniques, what we can do is catch ourselves when we're in the mental emotion. So catch ourselves when we're in the annoyance and map our way back down. So that's what my story is. When I just sat, closed my eyes, I mapped my way back down. I went down what was a feeling of neglect. Specifically, I felt forgotten and dismissed. And then deeper there, I really just felt unloved. So that's the emotional mapping, and it's really helpful for the coaching program. You're going to do a lot of emotional mapping with your clients. This is, if you're in the teacher program, this is a really great concept to teach. And if you're in the healer program, this is actually a technique that the healers use when they're doing their energy healing with their clients. And so the other thing I wanted to mention in this video is the TSD challenge. And the TSD challenge is practicing TSD mindfulness for at least 15 minutes for 30 days in a row. If you practice 5 out of 7 days a week, that would be okay. But the idea is practicing TSD mindfulness for 15 minutes for 30 days and seeing how your life changes. And so that practice is closing your eyes, using single pointed focus to help tame your mental field, moving your attention to your gut, using some techniques to soothe your nervous system, and moving your attention to your heart to really dwell in your heart. And so you can use the video for TSD mindfulness meditation number 4, or the video for TSD mindfulness meditation 5 or 6. You could use that for the challenge. So if you decide to do this challenge, I encourage you to announce it on social media or talk to your friends about it, talk to your family about it, let people know that you're doing this challenge and see if you can get a little bit of accountability, see if you can set up some dynamics where you're kind of reporting to some people about how it's going for you. And feel free to email me if you're doing this challenge and need some support. All right. Well, this concludes the TSD mindfulness video for emotional mapping.